He laughed in her face when she asked for a divorce, told her she had nothing. No job, no money, no leverage. He offered her 2 million naira like he was doing charity. But when the judge started reading the documents in that courtroom, his smile vanished. Because what her late father had hidden from everyone, including her, was about to flip everything upside down. This is the story of Adayeze and how her father protected her from beyond the grave. If you believe in justice and the power of a parent's love, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is about to take you on a ride you won't forget. This story doesn't begin where you'd expect. Not at the wedding, not even at the divorce filing. It begins 3 years before Adayeze ever met her future husband, in her father's study in their modest home in Surulere, Lagos. Adayeze had just graduated from university with a degree in project management. She was 22, full of dreams, ready to conquer the world. Her father, a respected civil servant who'd spent 30 years in government service, called her into his study one evening. "Ada," he said, using the shortened name only he called her. "Sit down. There's something I want you to understand." She sat across from him, watching as he removed his reading glasses and set them on the desk with deliberate care. A woman who depends entirely on a man's goodwill will find herself at his mercy. But a woman who knows her worth, a woman who has something of her own, she becomes unmovable. Adayeze smiled, thinking it was just her father being philosophical, protective. She had no idea those words would become her lifeline. Fast forward 3 years. Adayeze met Chukwudi Okonkwo at her cousin's wedding. He was everything that turned heads in Lagos high society. Successful businessman, charming, well-connected. His family owned properties across Lagos and Abuja, the kind of wealth that commanded respect and opened doors. Chukwudi pursued Adayeze with the intensity of a man who knew exactly what he wanted. 6 months of courtship, expensive dates, promises of forever. Then came the wedding, a ceremony that had all of Lagos talking. 300 guests, live band, Aso Ibi fabric that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Everyone said Adayeze had hit the jackpot. Everyone said she was lucky. If only they knew what was coming. 2 months after the wedding, Chukwudi made his first move. "You don't need to work anymore," he announced one morning over breakfast, barely looking up from his newspaper. "My wife doesn't need to struggle in someone's office. Stay home, take care of the house." To Adayeze, it sounded like care. It felt like love, like a husband wanting to provide for his wife. It was neither. Within 6 months, Adayeze went from being an independent project manager with her own salary and her own life to Mrs. Okonkwo, a woman whose every expense required permission. "Why do you need 5,000 naira for hair? 3,000 is enough. You're visiting your mother again? You just saw her last month. Why are you always on your phone? Who are you talking to?" The cage built itself slowly, one bar at a time. So slowly that Adayeze didn't realize she was trapped until she looked up one day and couldn't remember the last time she'd made a decision without Chukwudi's approval. Her friends started calling less. She stopped going out. Her world shrank to the walls of Chukwudi's house in Ikoyi, beautiful and suffocating in equal measure. Then, 2.5 years into the marriage, Adayeze's father died. A stroke, sudden, devastating. The man who had raised her, protected her, taught her about worth and strength, was gone. Adayeze was drowning in grief, needing time to process, to mourn, to be with her mother and siblings. She asked Chukwudi if she could stay with her mother for 2 weeks, to help arrange everything. 4 days, he said flatly. People will talk if my wife is away from home too long. 4 days is respectful enough. Adeze buried her father on a Thursday. By Sunday evening, she was back in Chukwudi's house, her grief still raw, her tears still fresh, her heart still breaking. That's when Chukwudi told her about Ngozi. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He simply informed her, like he was discussing a business transaction, a mere formality. Ngozi is pregnant. She'll be having my child in 6 months. I'll be setting her up in a flat in Lekki. As my wife, you'll accept this with dignity. Adeze stood there, still wearing black from her father's funeral, and something inside her shattered into 1,000 pieces. But something else, something her father had planted 3 years ago in that study, began to awaken. "I want a divorce," she said quietly. Chukwudi laughed, actually threw his head back and laughed like she'd told him the funniest joke he'd ever heard. "Divorce? With what, Adeze? You have nothing, no job, no savings, no property in your name. You've been living off me for 3 years. You think any judge will give you anything substantial? You'll leave this marriage with whatever I decide to give you, and you'll be grateful for it." He was right about one thing. Adeze had no savings in her name, no assets she knew about, nothing visible. But he was wrong about everything else. The next morning, while Chukwudi was at work, Adeze took a taxi to Victoria Island. She went to see Mr. Adekunle, her father's lawyer and closest friend for over 20 years. Mr. Adekunle was a man in his late 60s with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who'd seen every trick, every scheme, every betrayal the world had to offer. "Ada," he said, embracing her with the gentleness of someone who understood grief intimately, "I'm so sorry about your father. He was a remarkable man, one of the best I've ever known." "Mr. Adekunle," Adeze said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I need to know about my father's will." Mr. Adekunle paused. Then slowly, deliberately, he smiled. It was a knowing smile, almost proud. "Ah, so the time has come. Your father said you would come to me when you were ready." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down, my dear. We have much to discuss." What Mr. Adekunle revealed over the next 2 hours changed everything Adeze thought she knew about her life. Her father had been planning for her protection long before she knew she needed protecting. 7 years earlier, right after Adeze graduated from university, her father had started something he told no one about, not even his wife, a private investment portfolio in Adeze's name. Every month, without drawing attention or burdening the family, he put money aside. Not large amounts, but consistent, strategic investments in solid companies. But that wasn't all. "Your father owned 3 properties," Mr. Adekunle explained, sliding documents across his mahogany desk. "The family house in Surulere, which goes to your mother, with provision for your siblings, and 2 commercial properties in Ikoyi." Adeze's breath caught. Ikoyi, prime Lagos real estate. Both commercial properties were held in a private trust, registered in your name since you turned 21. Your father never told you because, in his words, she doesn't need to know until she needs to know. Adeze stared at the documents, her hands trembling. The rental income from both properties has been accumulating in a separate account for years. Your father never touched a single naira. He said it was your security, your independence. He called it your "when she needs it" fund. Mr. Adekunle pulled out a calculator and showed her the numbers. Current market value of the 2 properties, approximately 63 million naira. Investment portfolio value, after 7 years of growth. 15 million naira. Accumulated rental income, with interest, 12 million naira. Total, 90 million naira. Adeze had been living like a dependent, begging for grocery money, while sitting on a fortune she didn't know existed. Her father, the humble civil servant everyone thought had merely gotten by, had built her an empire in secret. Chukwudi filed for divorce first, confident he controlled the narrative. His lawyer was expensive, aggressive, one of those Lagos attorneys known for making sure wealthy men kept their wealth when marriages ended. In their pre-trial meetings, Chukwudi was magnanimous, or so he thought. "I'll give you 2 million naira as settlement," he announced, like a king bestowing favor on a peasant. "That's more than fair for a woman who contributed nothing to the marriage. Most men wouldn't give half that much." His lawyer nodded approvingly, already calculating his percentage. Mr. Adekunle, quiet and unassuming in his simple suit, simply smiled and said, "We'll see what the judge thinks." Chukwudi's lawyer, a man in an expensive agbada who smelled like old money and new cologne, actually chuckled. "Sir, with all due respect, the judge will see a woman with no income, no assets, no leverage. 2 million is not just fair, it's generous. Your client should take the offer." Adeze said nothing. She had learned something from her father that Chukwudi never understood. Let arrogant men talk themselves into corners. Silence is often the sharpest weapon. The day of the court hearing arrived. The courtroom was exactly what you'd imagine. Wood paneling, uncomfortable benches, the smell of old documents and human anxiety. The kind of place where lives changed in the time it took a judge to read a document. Chukwudi sat on his side of the room, looking relaxed, occasionally whispering to his lawyer, confident in his victory. Ngozi sat in the back, her pregnancy visible now, watching the proceedings like she was watching a movie where she already knew the ending. Justice Adebayo presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes, graying hair, and the kind of face that said she'd heard every lie, every excuse, every manipulation tactic known to humanity. She had zero tolerance for nonsense. Chukwudi's lawyer went first, standing up with theatrical flair. He painted Adeze as a dependent housewife who had contributed nothing tangible to the marriage, a woman with no job, no means of support, who should be grateful her generous husband was offering her anything at all. "Your Honor," he said, his voice booming with false righteousness, "Mrs. Okonkwo abandoned her career voluntarily. She chose to be supported by my client. That was her decision, and now she must live with the consequences of that decision. My client is offering 2 million naira out of the goodness of his heart, not obligation." Then it was Mr. Adekunle's turn. He stood slowly, adjusted his glasses with deliberate care, and spoke with the calm authority of a man holding all the cards. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit documents regarding Mrs. Okonkwo's financial position." Chukwudi's lawyer barely glanced up. Even Chukwudi looked bored, like this was just a formality before his inevitable victory. Mr. Adekunle walked to the judge's bench and placed 3 folders before Justice Adebayo. "Document A," he began, his voice cutting through the courtroom like a knife through silk. "Property titles for 2 commercial buildings in Ikoyi, registered in Mrs. Adeze Okonkwo's maiden name, Nwosu. Held in private trust since she turned 21. Current market value, approximately 63 million naira." Chukwudi's head snapped up like someone had slapped him. "Document B, investment portfolio established by Mrs. Okonkwo's late father. with consistent returns and strategic growth over 7 years. Current value, 15 million naira. Chukwudi's lawyer was now frantically flipping through his papers, looking for something, anything, that explained what was happening. Document C, accumulated rental income from said properties, untouched and accruing interest for over 7 years. Current balance, 12 million naira. The courtroom went completely silent. The kind of silence where you can hear hearts beating. Justice Adebayo examined the documents carefully, her expression neutral, but her eyes sharp. She looked at the papers, then at Chukwudi, then at Adeze, then back to the papers. The hint of a smile played at the corners of her lips. "So, Mr. Okonkwo," she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade through paper, "you were offering 2 million naira to a woman worth 90 million? How remarkably generous of you." The sarcasm in her voice could have stripped paint off walls. Chukwudi's face went from confusion to shock to rage in the space of 3 seconds. "That's impossible," he exploded, half rising from his seat. "She had nothing. She had everything." Justice Adebayo interrupted, her voice like steel. "She simply had a father wise enough to protect his daughter from men who would mistake her kindness for weakness, her quietness for stupidity, her grace for powerlessness." The judge turned to Adeyez, and for the first time in 3 years, Adeyezi felt truly seen by someone. "Mrs. Okonkwo, or should I say, Ms. Nwosu, as I suspect you'll prefer going forward, it's clear to this court that you entered this marriage with substantial assets. These assets were not concealed through deception, but through privacy, which is every person's right." She shuffled the papers, taking her time, letting every word sink in. "Furthermore, the court notes that you abandoned your career at your husband's insistence, not your own preference. This court recognizes economic and emotional contributions beyond mere monetary assets. However, given your independent wealth, you are clearly not in need of maintenance or financial support from Mr. Okonkwo." Then Justice Adebayo looked directly at Chukwudi, and her expression hardened. "Mr. Okonkwo, your petition for divorce is granted. The court awards no assets from either party to the other. You will both leave this marriage with exactly what you brought into it." She paused deliberately, letting the next words land with full force. "Though in your case, Mr. Okonkwo, you seem to be leaving with considerably less dignity than you entered with. You attempted to strong-arm a woman you believed had no options, no resources, no power. That reveals more about your character than any testimony could. This court is adjourned." The gavel came down. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Chukwudi tried one last desperate move. His face was red, sweat beading on his forehead, despite the air conditioning. "Adeyez, wait. We can work this out. You don't have to do this. We can try again. Start over. Adeyez turned to face him. When she spoke, her voice was steady, clear, unmovable, exactly like her father had taught her. "My father once told me that a woman who knows her worth becomes unmovable. You spent 3 years trying to convince me I was worthless, breaking me down, making me small, making me ask permission to exist." She stepped closer, and Chukwudi actually stepped back. "But even when I didn't know about the properties or the investments, even when I thought I had nothing, I knew something you could never understand. I knew my worth wasn't measured in naira or kobo. It wasn't in your name, or your house, or your permission. You didn't give me value, Chukwudi. You just tried to hide it from me. There's a difference." She adjusted her bag on her shoulder. "And that difference is why I'm walking away whole, while you're standing here broken." Enjoy your new family. Adaeze walked away down that courthouse hallway, and she never looked back. Not once. That was 4 years ago. Today, Adaeze still owns those properties in Ikoyi. The rental income supports her comfortably. She rebuilt her career and now runs her own project management consulting firm. She's selective about her clients, works on her own terms, and never asks anyone for permission to live her life. Chukwudi married Ngozi. Last anyone heard, she's now asking for the same things Adaeze once asked for: freedom to work, respect, partnership, basic human dignity. Whether he learned anything from losing Adaeze, no one knows. But that's no longer her concern. Adaeze's mother asked her once why her father never told her about the properties, why he let her go through uncertainty, let her marry Chukwudi, let her almost break before revealing his protection. Adaeze thought about it for a long time before she understood. Her father didn't give her wealth to save her. He gave her wealth because he knew that one day she would save herself. The money was never the point. The point was the knowing, truly knowing that she was never as powerless as someone tried to make her believe. The point was that her worth existed independent of anyone's recognition of it. Her father's gift wasn't the 90 million naira. His gift was teaching her that she was valuable with or without it. Listen closely. This story is about more than money or property or a divorce settlement. It's about every woman who's ever been made to feel small. Every woman who's been told she's nothing without someone else's approval. Chukwudi thought he won because he had the money, the name, the power. But he lost the moment he confused control with love, possession with partnership, dependence with devotion. Adaeze's father understood something Chukwudi never could. The most dangerous thing you can do to a woman who knows her worth is try to make her forget it. Chukwudi tried. He failed. And somewhere, Adaeze's father is smiling. Now, if this story moved you, if it reminded you that your value isn't determined by anyone's opinion of you, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. This story needs to reach every person who's ever been underestimated, every woman who's been told she's powerless, every daughter whose parent protected her even when she didn't know she needed protecting. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because I share stories like this every single week. Stories about people who refuse to accept someone else's definition of their worth. Stories about justice, karma, and the power of knowing who you are. You don't want to miss what's coming next. And share this video. Send it to your sister, your daughter, your friend who's going through something. Send it to anyone who needs to be reminded that they're worth more than someone's permission to exist. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had a moment where you discovered you were stronger than you thought? Have you ever had someone underestimate you, only to be proven spectacularly wrong? I read every comment, and your story might be the next video. And if you're going through something right now, if someone's trying to make you feel small or powerless or worthless, remember Adaeze. Remember that your worth exists whether anyone acknowledges it or not. The people who try to diminish you are only revealing their own insecurity. I'll see you in the next story. Keep knowing your worth.